How are teams beating Clemson and what can Clemson do about it? We'll talk about it right here on Locked on Clemson.
You are Locked on Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked on Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked on Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you are an everydayer, big salute out there to you for sticking with me Monday through Friday with exclusive Clemson content all throughout the week. And if you're new to the show, welcome in. About 75% of you are not yet subscribed. Hey, I just checked recently. We are over the 3,000 mark on YouTube for subscribers. So thank you so much. More than double when I started back in February. So thank you so much for joining me. Tell your friends about it, and you don't want to miss as we continue to talk through this Clemson football season and get ready for Clemson basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. How are teams beating Clemson, and what can Clemson do about it? Well, other teams aren't just guessing, even though it seems like a lot of ways Clemson is just guessing out there. I like to call the Clemson offense spaghetti against the wall. And sometimes it feels that way from Garrett Riley, and I don't really know why. But other teams don't seem to be doing that way. They seem to have a game plan. They seem to have a strategy and know exactly what they want to do and are very confident with that. And it seems as if they're not having to do any kind of trick plays or anything crazy that you probably haven't seen as a college football fan over the years. But the simple game plan that comes out really every single week, because Clemson has glaring issues and it can mess the Tigers up pretty quickly. And what we've seen is the teams that are more confident in what they're doing. You look at LSU, even though they've kind of fallen off now, they were extremely confident in the short passing game and their speed, and it worked out well for them. If you look at Georgia Tech, they were extremely confident in their quarterback, running everything and just basically allowing him to make decisions, but putting him in the right situations based on down and distance. So Haynes King kind of took the game over, sprinkling in a good amount of pass with a good amount of rush. Very balanced there from Georgia Tech. And then Syracuse had a plan with Steve Angeli that worked right out the gate. A lot of it was Clemson not being able to disrupt the team that they were playing against. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I think Duke will need to do, or really any team for the next 5 games to beat Clemson. And this is not any kind of shock, I'm sure, because it seems like everybody has a blueprint on what Clemson, what hurts Clemson right now. And a lot of these things you're probably going to agree with. There might be a few things that I've missed, but this is kind of a general idea of what I would do or what I'm looking for, or anticipating maybe that Clemson will fix in the last 5 games if they can. There may be just weaknesses that Clemson just cannot fix because of the talent they have. Now, I know there's a huge debate out there between you guys and myself about, is it development? Is it coaching? Is it talent? And I'm always been a big believer in it's talent, it's talent, it's talent, it's talent. And what we're seeing right now with Clemson is that Dabo Swinney has allowed for recruiting to slip in certain position groups over time, 2 or 3 years of not getting a top 50 player. And now what you're seeing is that those players are having to start. And those players are not as equal to what other teams have been able to get into the transfer portal. If you miss a top 50 guy this year, that doesn't mean that last year's top 50 guy is not available in the portal, just looking for a place to be used more often. And so I think Clemson is becoming more aware of that now. One of those things is Wade Woodaz. I feel like that he's had a pretty poor season. The coaching staff will tell you that he's been doing fine. I don't think any fan in Clemson believes that. Wade Woodaz is the first guy that I would try to attack. And really, you would want to attack him in any way possible. If you can get Wade Woodaz out open in space, I think that's where he does the worst. I think that's where he really has his flaws come out. I don't trust him fully in coverage, and I don't trust him fully to wrap up in the run game as well. So for me, step one is if I'm on offense and I see Wade Woodaz out there, I'm going to try to motion towards his side. I'm going to try to throw a quick pass towards his side. I'm going to try to run towards his side and force those missed tackles, force a 5-yard play to turn into a 20-yard play through Wade Woodaz. To me, he has been a weak link this season. He's not been, what I hyped him up to be at the beginning of the season, what the coaches have hyped him up to be. The leadership there may be there. He may have a strong voice, but his play on the team does not kind of stand out as, one of those players where you're looking forward to seeing where they're going to get drafted in the NFL. Clemson has, of Clemson's senior linebackers, that's typically been what the expectation is that the linebacker that is the most senior is first, second round. And it's been multiple years, third round, that's kind of been the standard. And Wade Woodaz has not lived up to that. Khalil Barnes is another one where, in last year, he got lost in space a lot. He was not very disciplined with his coverages. This year he's improved a little bit, but it tails off in 4 quarters. So maybe you don't attack him as much in the first quarter, but I would definitely go after him in the third and fourth quarter because Clemson just doesn't have a lot of depth. And Tom Allen's already publicly admitted that he's playing too many snaps. And if whoever is out there substituting for Khalil Barnes, which it was supposed to be Shelton Lewis, who left the team, quit the team because he wasn't getting enough rotation either. You're not rotating guys is causing guys to get frustrated and leave. And, even though they were getting exposed at the times that they were out there, that is your backups. So you have to live with the cards that you have in your hand. You can't just refuse to play cards because they're going to get burnt. Same thing goes with Jaden Lucas that we mentioned yesterday. This is the depth you have. If you don't use them, then you're using your starters for the entire game, and they're not going to last for 4 quarters. And you've seen that with Clemson so far this season. Another guy I'm pointing at is Ronan Hannafin. He's a guy who can be all over the place, tackles everywhere, wants to get in on everything. But to be honest with you, he is not fast enough. He does not have the speed to keep up with some of the guys that could maybe hurt you. And so I would test Ronan Hannafin. If you have a speed guy, I would test Ronan Hannafin, test the communication with the secondary. To me, those are the things where they don't even have to really be deep balls. Again, it goes back to sometimes these short plays turn into bigger plays, big chunk plays. To me, in the passing situations, Clemson has struggled a ton. And it all kind of goes back to the fact that I didn't list anybody on the defensive line as guys to attack. They don't even pose enough problem to, at this point, game plan for. And that is a big frustration for most Clemson fans and myself, is that these guys just don't show up on Saturdays the way that you were liking, and then it exposes your secondary and exposes your second line of defense in Wade Woodaz and the linebacker group. So that's the biggest thing that I would say if I'm a defense, I'm going after. Next up, I was looking at Texas A&M statistically. I haven't looked at a lot of their games, but I looked at them statistically and what they're doing on their roster to see what Clemson can do to maybe steal some things for the next 5 games from Texas A&M. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps everything exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, segment 2 here on Locked on Clemson. Thank you so much. If you're watching over YouTube, you know I'm a little bit of a different background. I'm actually in Jacksonville, Florida for some flight training for the next 2 weeks. So you should see this background for the next couple of shows, and then I'll be back home. Hopefully, all is good from there. But getting into this, Texas A&M is obviously winning. They're one of the better teams this year in college football. They're 8-0. Clemson is 3-4. You'd much rather be in Texas A&M's spot than you would like to be in Clemson's spot right now. And it's not because Texas A&M has a bunch of the best players all over the country on their team. And it's not because they have some sort of magic solution to win these games. They have built a team that works well for the things that they're trying to do. And there are, to me, 4 things that I think they do every single week that Clemson right now does not do. And if Clemson can find some sort of way to copy what Texas A&M is doing successfully, then maybe, just maybe, Clemson could be able to improve and finish the rest of the season with some level of success. I'm not saying they're going to win the next 5 games and finish 8-4. I did call 8-4, but that was before the Syracuse loss when I called 8-4. Statistically speaking, 6-6 seems to be statistically the average that Clemson will be able to finish with being a bowl eligible. 7-4 would be at this point a very unlikely option or outcome, or a low percentage outcome. So what can Clemson do to maybe help those percentages? Well, and what can they learn from Texas A&M, or what can we kind of pull from Texas A&M? Well, the first thing is that Texas A&M is not some sort of air raid team. They run the ball with a purpose. Can you say that Clemson runs the ball with a purpose? I can't say that at all. I would say more often than not, Garrett Riley forgets to run the ball. Garrett Riley can't run the ball because the offensive line is so bad. And the running backs rotation is not being helped either because they abandoned the run. There's been a lot of debate this week about running back rotation. What do you really expect when Adam Randall, your running back 1, is getting 10 carries? How are you supposed to balance that or rotate that when your running back 1 is only getting 10? Your running back 1's got to get more carries, so running back 2 can get more carries, so running back 3 can get more carries. But they've also got to be able to have success with the offensive line. A&M runs it more than half the time, and they're good at it. They force defenses to shrink. And when that happens, that's when they use their over-the-top shots and down-the-field shots. And Clemson's also got to figure out how to do that in some way. I think these guard, tackle, pulls, and counters and everything is too complicated. They need to make the offensive line blocking scheme as easy as possible. And they need to stop pretending that just one guy is going to be able to do everything. Even though Adam Randall has done great, they have to give Gideon Davidson real touches. 12 to 14 in the game. Adam Randall in on the most important downs, the pass protection downs, the third downs, David Eziomume, sprinkled in when you need a change of pace, but you need rotation, not just survival. Clemson is playing survival with their offensive game plan, just hoping to make it to the next play or the next first down, and it's not working. A lot of times it feels like spaghetti on a wall, and it all goes back to the fact that Clemson has no run game because they have no run blocking. So Garrett Riley and Matt Luke and Dabo Swinney have to sit down and figure this out. If they haven't already, I mean, it's Thursday before the Saturday game. They've had 2 weeks of bye week to figure it out. And it's unfortunate that we're getting into November and I'm still demanding that Clemson figure out how to have a running game. Because it's just imploding everything. Even you're not going to be able to get a guarantee another SMU team with a bad secondary. Teams are going to be more difficult to do that against and just pass and forget the run game. In long-term winning games, and Clemson didn't even win the SMU game, long-term, you're not going to have much success if you can't run the ball. So that's the first thing. The second thing, A&M doesn't give up any sacks, really. They protect their quarterback. Their quarterback has time. Reed is calm in the pocket, and the balls go where they need to go. Clemson has to help Kade Klubnick in this way too. Whether it be sliding protection from one side of the line to another, whether it be chipping off with a tight end, whether it be running backs helping, having multiple tight ends, multiple tackles, rollouts, whatever it may be. Kade Klubnick needs help, and I know that the ankle problem may be a concern to the rollouts, but they've got to do better protection, not only run blocking, but protection for the quarterback for passing downs. Kade is finicky in the pocket, and he does stuff like that, and he's not patient, and that is in some ways a problem with Kade, but it's also in many ways a problem with what this offensive line is bad at, which is both run blocking and pass blocking. So Clemson has really the worst case scenario when it comes to the offensive line right now. But if you're going to have any more success going forward, they've got to protect the quarterback. And the thing about the quarterback, the responsibility that I would have is I would say, Kade, you need to go back and look at Christopher Vizina and how he stayed in the pocket. Kade throws a better ball than Christopher Vizina. Outside of the deep balls, he throws a better spiral than Christopher Vizina. Cade's deep balls are lob wedges to the moon and back, but for the most part, Cade's passes to me are better passes. But Kade does not stay in the pocket like he should, like Christopher Vizina did. Christopher Vizina took a bunch of sacks, but I'd rather, and I've been saying this for weeks, I'd rather take a bunch of sacks staying in the pocket than fleeing the pocket and having minimal to no options. So for me, that's what I would do is I would protect the quarterback and have Kade stay in the pocket as much as he can and step up in the pocket. Another thing Texas A&M does really well is when they get in the red zone, they use the tight end on a lot of red zone opportunities and a lot of important downs. And they do easy, high percentage throws to keep the chains moving. And Christian Bentincur needs to be that guy. He's got to own 4 to 6 targets a game, up the middle, leaking out in the flat, goal lines, tight end screens. Anything you can do to also help Kade find a way to score in the red zone will be extremely key moving forward. He is a guy who, I don't care how young he is, he needs to be on the field. Christian Bentincur is a highly recruited guy, much higher recruited than the guys that you're playing over him, because simply loyalty and, tenure. It's time to get rid of tenure and go with Christian Bentincur. Finally, they have to have some sort of closer on defense. Texas A&M crushes you on third down and gets to you, sacks you, and forces you to punt. Clemson has to have some sort of third down pass rush that puts fear in the eyes of the offense, and they don't have that right now. If Tom Allen can dial up something on third down and figure something out on third down to scare offenses again, like Brent Venables could do, then those would be the 4 things that I would do to help Clemson for the next 5 games and the rest of the season. All right. Coming up in the third segment here, we're going to talk about 6 things that we are looking for the rest of the season, not just game plans, but specific things for offense and defense and specific players right here on Locked On Clemson. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention on how they craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. And you can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, a few things that I'm tracking for the rest of the season. And I know I've told you that I like to circle things. I like to get a sheet of paper out and I say, okay, these are the things that Clemson needs to do to beat Duke this weekend. And if they do those things, then they will be able to win the game. And if they don't, then it's likely that the game will be a loss. And so far, the past couple of games, I had a few things set out and it didn't work out, so, and it ended up in a loss. But that's what I'm looking at here. Is November is the scoreboard for us to look at Clemson, to read every single game and figure out where they can hit and win. And if they don't, then they're definitely not going to win the game. And for me, I'll start with the defense, because we didn't talk much about the defense in the last game or the last segment. But it kind of goes back to that third down, but I'm not going to say this on every third down. I want to see some type of aggressive pass rush on those clear passing downs. Clemson, I don't want to see just sitting back and letting Darian Mensah expose you. That's exactly what you allowed Syracuse to do. That's exactly what you allowed Haynes King to do. And that's exactly what you allowed Garrett Nussmeier to do. You're allowing these guys to just sit back and pick you apart. You're not getting any sort of pass rush. The goal for me, one, is for TJ Parker to step up. Either one of them, I would love to see some sort of bad throw, some sort of third down forced, some sort of third down aggression, any sacks. The person who can get the most sacks will typically be better off in this game. So I'm going to say Clemson needs to win the sacks game against Duke, and it needs to be TJ Parker and Will Help need to kind of have a competition between each other. Who can get more sacks? If there are 2+ sacks from Clemson, and those 2+ sacks are also more than Duke, then I believe that Clemson has a good shot at winning the game. Almost getting there or not getting there at all is just allowing Mensah to destroy you and beat you, down the field, and use his talents to the best of his ability. So you can't have another quarterback just do all these things. And I get it. You're in the comments and you're saying, well, Morgan, you've been saying this for 8, 9, 10 weeks now, and they're just not doing it. And it may be the case, but we have to keep trying. We have to keep asking for it, because if they're not going to get a pass rush at all, then they're not winning most of these games left outside of Furman. And that is the real reality for this Clemson game, for this Clemson team. And this could end up, if they can't figure out something on the pass rush, then this could be one of those things that this could be one of those teams that's one of the worst Dabo Swinney teams ever. If they're not already the worst Dabo Swinney team ever, they probably are the worst Dabo Swinney team, at least compared to expectations. We didn't have a ton of expectations post Tommy Bowden leaving and being fired. So those expectations were really low. Dabo Swinney was a relatively new coach. He was still trying to figure things out. Didn't really get along with Billy Napier and his game plan on offense. And so the frustrations were warranted and the losses were warranted there. Now, Dabo built everything that he has right now from scratch, from the way he wanted, with as much money as he needed, and it's not working out. And so if you're not getting a pass rush is going to continue, then this team could possibly be not only one of not only the worst Dabo Swinney team, but one of the worst Clemson teams in my lifetime. I don't know. Some of you guys that are older than me maybe remember the 70s and the 80s. I don't remember the 70s and the 80s. I probably, the earliest I remember is maybe 1995, going to games when I was a kid. I went to games younger than that, but I didn't really pay attention as well. So 95 is when my memory starts. But if you look, those teams were not great, but they also didn't have a ton of expectations outside of maybe the later Tommy Bowden, years. But it did seem like they knew what they wanted to do, and it wasn't fun. It was run, punt, but it did seem like they at least knew what they wanted to do and what their strengths were on offense. Going back to the defense, though, first thing I want you to circle is that pass rush. Clemson has to do that. They have to have some sort of aggression there. Tackling all around, I do believe that Wade Woodaz is a person that you can pick on offense, but I want to see Jeremiah Alexander get a lot of snaps. So I don't know if he's necessarily a game changer that could win you a game, but it could help Clemson shut down some of the bleeding that happens in the run game, some of the problems that happens in their ability to keep or stop teams from getting a third down conversion. And then finally, limiting big plays from the defense. I don't want to see a lot of 20-plus plays from the secondary. If they can figure out a way to limit that, I think Clemson will be successful. If Duke has more than 20-plus pass yards, passing plays, and more sacks than Clemson, I believe Clemson's going to lose the game. On offense, Clemson, again, has to have some sort of run game. I don't think Gideon Davidson is necessarily going to cause you to win the game, but having a threat like that and having a rotation like that will at least help the team. Finally, it goes back to that protection piece, which goes back to the protection piece goes back to the sacks. To me, Kade Klubnick has got to stay upright. He's got to stay in the pocket. If the offensive line limits the sacks, that'll allow the defensive line to try to get more, and that will overall help everything. Really, this Clemson team lives and dies by their offensive line and defensive line, and unfortunately, both those lines have been very below average this season. Hey, let me know what you think in the comments. I love hearing from you and getting your feedback. I appreciate, everyone out there. If you are already subscribed and followed, thank you so much. You're an everydayer. You're with me Monday through Friday. That is awesome. It means a lot to me. If you're new to the show and you've made it all the way to the end, thank you again for making it to the end. Don't forget to hit the follow and the like button and check me out over on X at the Morgan T Show. If you get in the comments or you message me on social media, one thing I will tell you is that as a Clemson fan, lifelong Clemson fan, as a lifelong Clemson grad, a lot of fans out there say, well, Morgan, you're too negative. You got to be more positive. What I want you to know is that if you don't like hearing what's actually happening to your team, then, I'm not really sure why you're even watching the games, because this is where Clemson is. A 3-4 team warrants nitpicking and looking at where the problems are. And it doesn't mean that I don't want to be positive. As I mentioned to you this episode, there are many things that Clemson can do to win these next 5 games. that's still on the table because that's why they play the games. If we didn't play the games and we just went by statistics, then yeah, Clemson's losing 5 games, maybe 4 they're losing 4 out of 5 and the season's over. But that's why we play the games. But what I would encourage you is to know that there are some bright spots on this team, but a 3-4 team that comes out and has multiple games where they don't know what they're doing at the beginning of the game. They have quarters where they have no success at all. Not only that, they can't keep the teams off the field and they can't move down the field. There are a lot of problems with this team. And if you're truly watching and listening, it's a big shock to the whole fan base. And I understand it. And I don't know where Dabo Swinney is going to go from here, but I do know this. He's one of the winningest coaches in college football. He has 2 national championships. And while those things are in the past, I would rather see if he can fix it over the next, you might not like this, 3 years. I'd rather see what he can do. If you know what I'm saying about 3 years, why it might take 3 years, you might know what I'm thinking needs to happen in the offseason. So I say, for me, I would give Dabo Swinney 3 more years to work it out and build himself back up. But thank you again for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On ACC podcast. Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono break down the most interesting college conference and college sports, from the rivalries to the championships to every game in between. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.